But in the broader sense, it's a platform to empower and enable creativity. So in this talk, we're going to be talking about Patreon and whether we need to have such a thing decentralized, essentially in this sense. Right. So, it's actually cropped a little bit. That is okay. Well, everybody here for sure knows the Satoshi Nakamoto vision for Bitcoin as peer-to-peer payments of means of transactions. But for a while, it all expanded, and we're no longer talking about purely monetary use case of Bitcoin. Rather, for a while, we've been talking about the Web 3 or Web 3.0. But initially, like till the very day, if you ask people in this room potentially, how do you define Web 3? What is it? What does it mean for you? We get a very platitude of various answers. So here you can see the original. Basically, the term initially was, so to speak, minted by Gavin Wood, co-founder of Ethereum and later on founder of Polkadot. And the idea was that the Web 3.0 should remove the barriers and conflict of interest between creators and consumers of the content and application users in the web. But are we there yet? That's a good question. And here, well, it's a briefly put together chart illustrating the adoption and where we are in terms of going mainstream. So initially, it all started as means of transactions, right? So decentralized finance. But since 2009, you would all agree we went a long way in terms of adoption. Finally, the institution getting on board, multitude of crises happening all over the world, also happening in the adoption, because like in Europe, we're actually fortunate enough, and we are pretty much well off with the traditional finance. But if you look in South America, for example, the fight got a huge explosion mainstream because of course just the economy went to shit. And well, later on, basically NFT came along, and we got a whole new wave of the creative types getting on board because the NFT had a huge promise for them. Well, obviously can be somewhere in here, there can be DAO, this is decentralized organization, but I see them as actually enablers in terms of those two main use cases. And if you look in the very last circle, you can see that's basically in the whole ocean of the internet users today, still the active users of decentralized finance and NFT applications are just mere fraction. So the main questions for this talk and for this discussion, as I see it, is how can we onboard new users into the Web3? How can we actually, what's the next big thing, what should happen to get all the people who still keep saying that crypto is too hard, well, I don't get it, I'm familiar and comfortable with the Web3 solution, I don't care whether it's decentralized or not, I don't care who owns my data, all I care about is, the simplicity of use and the current functionality, saving time, and so on. Right, so, okay guys, so yeah, figure out my spots. Am I stopping a little bit? It's supposed to be something like this. Yeah, and the third thing, and the most important one, so what are the barriers? What are the main issues that we have? And we need to resolve if we want to crypto to go mainstream. Yeah. So I would say that the technology, and mainly people in here who work in crypto, who work in tech, they focus constantly on the tech side. So we're perfecting the technology, we're trying to take care of all those things, trying to make it perfect. But quite frequently, we ignore a couple of other things. So I would say there are three pillars in terms of building the truly decentralized digital creative economy. Obviously the technology, but technology is an enabling layer. Then there is a law. There is existing legal framework which should be taken into account. So we can think about, so to say, utopia when everything is going to go decentralized, we're going to screw the current players, but it's not happening. And if you look into the decentralized finance space, for example, it didn't happen either, because finally, there's still KYC, there's a bunch of regulation, there's a SEC, everything, so there's lots of compliance. So ultimately we see kind of diversion towards, so to speak, a compromise. So we need to think when we're building something, can it be not necessarily like go against, but coexist with the solution that currently makes sense. And last but not least, actually the main focus, what do the users want? What does work for them? What are they looking for? How do we make the application that we build just better than what they're used to and what they currently work with into the Web 2? Okay, sorry. So what has been done so far in the space? Well, there have been multiple attempts, but to my opinion, the closest project that got to the point of actually bringing something similar to Decentralized platform was Brave. I don't know, you guys, anybody here, do you use Brave browser?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have exactly kind of neutral selection, because you're all into the stuff. I've been using it for a few years as well. Do you guys know about the Brave Creators program? Brave Creators? No, nobody?
Yes.
Seriously? You do, perfect. Awesome, but do you actually use it? Like, did you get many tips? Did it work for you?
Never registered.
Exactly, so I think it's a brilliant idea, but it didn't work. And when we open flow to discussion, I would be really curious to hear why that, do you think? My opinion is because, like, they're not truly decentralized, they're still locking the users within actually making them use the same browser. B, if you talk about support and tipping, it works only with the BAT talking. So it's all there, lots of bottlenecks which are just out there. And in the early days we were trying to do a project and actually start engaging the creators and start tipping them, but we just all over the place. Basically, there was no one to participate, and still too complex to register, whatever. No, it didn't really take off. But the idea was brilliant. And then also a couple other issues with Brave. Just recently, they started sending emails that if you are in a certain jurisdiction, you can no longer use Brave because we are not. They use a custodial wallet, and if you're in a certain jurisdiction, our solutions are not. We don't provide services in there. So how decentralized is that? Okay, now moving to the Keybase. Because the Keybase, those guys did, I'm pretty sure you know Keybase as well, at least what it used to be, like when we just started about 4 or 5 years ago. Did anybody here use Keybase? Right.
Hi.
Cool. So, for those of you guys who didn't, they started as public identity registry, where you can verify your public identities and connect them, and then basically use that to prove to anyone who you don't know, with whom you communicate remotely, that you are who you are, and you control those channels. Well, that was pretty cool, but again, it didn't take off, because on top of that, they didn't build any meaningful use case, they didn't get traction, they didn't get outside of this very rather small circle of people who truly care about it. And ultimately they got bought by Zoom, which just crosses over all the points of the decentralization and whatever not. Right, take this. Yeah. Okay, so the key point of what we are working on, and the key idea is to actually bridge the feature sets and the key promises of what was established, what was already built within Web 2, and the best technology of the Web 3, and bring them together and build around creating the best user experience and functionality possible. So, for example, like, there is Keybase, there is Brave, there is Patreon, there is Open Collective, yes, if we're talking about, not about the purely content creators, but if we talk about open source code, then Open Collective will be the closest thing to the Patreon. And also, on top of all of this, if you aim to remove the central authority and make it decentralized, the idea is that you somehow need to manage the rights. You somehow need to manage all the complexity, and naturally comes also the additional feature of digital licensing and content management, which will be on the user side. But the tricky part is how to make it simple enough so the users do not get overwhelmed. Right, so basically the main questions for us to answer, and I would really hear from you guys, what do you think? So how do we overcome this adoption challenges are still out there? How can we improve the user experience, and how can we get like all the people out there who still thinking, well, I don't get crypto, so why the hell would I start using it? What needs to be done? I would say what we need to start with is, again, improving user experience, education, but talking their language, not talking like constantly about decentralization and how cool brave new world is, but talking about what actually matters to them. And yeah, that's basically it. I would really like to hear from you guys. What do you think?